Friday the 13th, GBT, the SEC, is it going to be another smackdown? Are they going to get served? And they are going to get their asses handed to them. Join me today. We've got Rory Saylor, the co-host. How are you this morning, brother?
Quite warm this morning, brother. Quite warm.
Yeah, it is starting to heat up. Went for a walk this morning. It's good, though. It's nice for us. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to get straight into GBTC. If you can do us a favor, hit the like button is the biggest thing. Kicking it off straight away, this is a super interesting post. I'll see if I can make it a bit bigger for everyone. How's that? So I think GBTC is a better signal at the moment than Bitcoin and has been for a while. As the deadline looms for the SEC on Friday, other speculators are holding down the price of Bitcoin, in my opinion, with halving an ETF within the next 6 months, and CZ Binance is playing his games. Paul Tudor Jones coming out yesterday is more signal. Obviously, we covered that yesterday. Just a shout out to James V. Stratum at Jimmy VS24. I have retweeted this, so give this gentleman a follow. It's a good tweet. GBTC is up on a 6 month, 3 month, 1 month, and 5 day time frame. Bitcoin is down on mostly all of them. The reason this is important, ladies and gentlemen, the correlation between GBTC and Bitcoin is usually 100%. Other than the times when we see a drawdown in Bitcoin price, SVB collapse, March, etc., and then revert back to 100%, especially on a 5-year time frame, it's about 100% correlation. But that has lost correlation since June. So listen, obviously the video with British Hodl came out 2 days ago. I'll link that at the end for everyone. But as British Hodl says, GBTC will be the first to be approved for the spot ETF before BlackRock and others. I'll dive into my thoughts. I probably differ in opinion a little bit here. Price action agrees with this, irrespective of whether it's late Q3 or early Q4. It's a 6 month window from now. TikTok next block. The discount to NAV is less than 16 months, which is roughly the same period as mid to late 21. So either Bitcoin gaps up, and this is where it gets exciting, to the GBTC level since divergence, which is roughly a 50% increase overnight. Imagine Bitcoin gapping up 50%. Would we not be happy or what? So GBTC goes down towards Bitcoin, which is very unlikely. Also, the reward of having GBTC convert into a spot ETF from a discount perspective is high reward, low risk. I've retweeted this, read through it and give this guy a like here, repost. I'll put that in there. We're going to come back into this. I just want to show you we'll get to this post in a sec by Crypto Rover. But I thought, ladies and gentlemen, you'd really like to see this video here. So I'll bring this lady up full screen, and you'll see how the narrative is shifting so strongly in Bitcoin's favor here. So headphones on, let's go.
As well, it's decentralized and you don't have that trusted third party. Then why would you be here? Why aren't you at some Ethereum conference or something? You know, like I don't see it. But so that first category of those hardcore, very optimistic, indeed resourceful people are like, wait a second, I'm not going to let the authorities just tell me what I can and cannot spend my money on, become some sort of serf within a new neo-feudalist system. I'm going to opt out and nobody can control what I spend my money on. I love that. I mean, please continue to send me stuff because I'm really eager to learn. I'm really eager to become a full-blown Bitcoiner, you know, laser eyes, everything. Like, let's go. This is, well, it's decent.
What I find so exciting about that is just how bullish she is. It sounds like she's just been orange-pilled and that light bulb moment has just happened. She's like, laser eyes, everything, let's go, decentralized. She gets it. Obviously, she has done a little bit of research there. Any thoughts on that one, Rory? And then we'll dive into GBTC.
I can only hope that my friends turn into this woman. Because the amount of stuff I send my friends on, I'm like, hey, just check this out. Just check that out. And some of them are receptive and most aren't receptive, as you can sort of imagine. But yeah, if they were more like her, well, just send me everything. Send me all you've got. Yeah, that would be awesome.
It's funny. It only takes a couple of touch points. Maybe they need to see 1 or 2 cycles first and then realize Bitcoin's not going away anywhere. And then once that that happens to them, they're like, all right, I need to find information. And it just takes one bit of information to be able to resonate. And then you're like, all right, like let's read all the books, listen to all the podcasts, and just consume as much information as you possibly can. That's what happened for me, at least. And I think once people start to get it, then they really get it and they want to understand everything. We will get into the GBTC, everyone. If you're watching this on Twitter, come over to YouTube and say g'day there. That's a place to watch it. It'll also be better sound, better visuals as well. So Crypto Rover at Rover CRC. This Friday is the deadline for the SEC to appeal the Grayscale Bitcoin spot ETF. Just a quick FYI, it is Friday the 13th here in Australia. So we're already living this day, but we're not going to find out this resolution until tomorrow. I know that's a random sideline. If they do not appeal this decision from the court, it means they are out of options to decline spot Bitcoin ETFs, and they will be forced to accept them all. At the same time, the GBTC premium gap is closing very quickly. We had a look at this lady here. So the courts have obviously, this is September 7. If anyone doesn't know, I'll just give you a real quick recap of the backstory of why this is such a huge thing. The SEC got absolutely put on blast by the judges. They got told they're arbitrary and capricious, and there's no reason for them not to be filing. But this is probably a better overview. On August 29, 2023, a three-judge panel of the DC Circuit Court of Appeals unanimously sided with Grayscale and its long-running battle with the SEC regarding its application to launch the first Bitcoin ETF. Observing that the SEC's denial of Grayscale's proposal was arbitrary and capricious because it was inconsistent with the SEC's treatment of similar products. So the court vacated the SEC June 2022 rejection of a proposed rule change that would allow the New York Stock Exchange ARCA to list Grayscale Bitcoin Trust shares on its exchange. Now, as we flick over here, there are a couple of things. So to appeal or to not to appeal the Grayscale ruling, that's the SEC's question. This is what everyone is waiting for tomorrow, Friday the 13th. This will be a monumental day, regardless of whatever happens, and we can get into our thoughts. Rory and I are probably fairly aligned on many things, but we probably differ on a couple of the nuances. To appeal or not to appeal the Grayscale ruling, that's the SEC question. Number of industry watchers expect the SEC not to challenge its court loss, but the agency could look to play obstructionist in other ways, analyst says. I think that's probably the most likely. We can dive into it. While segment observers have said an SEC appeal could be bearish for Bitcoin ETF approval timelines, many expect the SEC not to appeal. Regardless of the Commission's choice, a number of industry watchers agree Bitcoin ETFs will ultimately trade. That's the biggest takeaway. If you get that, it may not happen tomorrow. It may not happen this year, but eventually, pretty much everybody agrees the Bitcoin ETFs are coming. There's no option there. I'll get through it and then we'll unpack our thoughts. So if the SEC does not appeal, I'll just make that a bit bigger for everyone. The court is expected to issue an order detailing next steps. This could include instructing the SEC to approve the application. Personally, I think that's unlikely, or to revisit Grayscale's application, in which case the SEC could still reject the proposal on other grounds. To revisit Grayscale's application is the most likely. I believe they're going to ask them to refile. Even if the SEC chooses not to appeal, it could still look to play obstructionist. The SEC can still decline the conversion for different reasons. I think they're running out of reasons, in my opinion, making the need for an appeal less compelling than it was in the Ripple case, where the judge's decision was definitive and held significant implications for the legal classification of digital assets. So listen, the SEC requesting Grayscale to submit a new proposal and rejecting it again for a different reason is the most likely path. resubmitting a proposal would begin a 240-day review. 240 days from today is Sunday, June 9th, so that would be Monday, June 10th, which would be after the halving, just to take note there. The 240-day window for the SEC to rule on a spot Bitcoin ETF proposed by ARK Invest and 21 shares. So we're not talking about Grayscale at the moment, we're talking about ARK Invest and 21 shares. This expires Jan 10th. The ultimate deadline for it to decide on other proposals, such as those by BlackRock and Fidelity, is roughly 2 months later. So January, February, March, obviously getting very close to the halving there as well. I believe it's going to be Q1 next year. However it happens, I dare say BlackRock's going to be the first person to get it. And a couple more things, and then we can unpack our thoughts. So a rejection would undoubtedly have short-term negative repercussions. So just be aware, volatility. It could be very volatile in the next 2 days or over the weekend as well, particularly as traders could leverage the ensuing market uncertainty and volatility to engage in speculative long and short positions. Probably a good time to stack and chill. Red days are for stacking. Green days are for chilling unless it's a DCA a day. Greco explained, conversely, an approval would generate a positive market response, signaling the potential influx of substantial capital from traditional markets. Rory, absolutely massive, monumental day. There is a lot of information there to be able to unpack. What are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen tomorrow for everyone with the SEC and the GBTC?
I'm pretty sure they'll just push it back. There doesn't, and also I hope they push it back. The longer they take to approve an ETF, the more opportunity I personally have of stacking sats. So, you know, I want them to push it back as long as possible. That 240 days before they with the ARK Invest ETF next June, mate. That'd be perfect if they just keep pushing everything back. It's just longer and longer. I know you and I differ from. Sorry, mate. There's a car coming past. You and I differ from how we stack sats. You stack sats on red days. I stack sats on pay days.
Yeah.
So it's a little. There's a lot going on right now, mate. If there's some background noise going on. They got roosters and dogs and all sorts of stuff around here.
It adds to the ambience. I love it, bro. It's all good. Nature is, well, for me, ladies and gentlemen, and this is so random, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual in a way, I guess, and I believe in God, G-O-D, the great outdoors, and Rory right now is absolutely living the great outdoors. So he's one with nature. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you if you want to continue on.
Yeah, it's just I'm pretty sure they'll keep pushing it back with the appeal for the court appeal on the SEC case with GBTC. I highly doubt they'll appeal it because I think they'll just take the L, to be honest. But you never know. You know, Gary Gensler's a wild man, so no one knows what he's thinking. I really like the how he talked about when he was in the college and he was doing the speech with what makes a commodity and what makes a security, and then he goes and gets a job with the SEC, which is just insane. So you know, you got to wonder where his head's at most of the time.
Very interesting. I wonder if the SEC on that, and this is just speculation, if they tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, Gary, you know, you're a professor, you're talking about blockchain technology there. Everyone's talking now about blockchain about Bitcoin. Can you step in here and then we will pay you an exorbitant amount of money to be our puppet? And because he had the credibility, like at the start we were all for Gary Gensler. We thought he would be great for the space because he understood the technology, and then he comes in there and then they ramp up the lies, the misinformation, the propaganda. That's the way that I see has happened with Gary Gensler. I don't think it's his beliefs that he's spruiking. I think he's just been paid off. That's my opinion. Everyone in the chat, I'd like to hear yours in regards to that. So a question here. They were asking me yesterday what my allocation to Bitcoin was. Rory, all into Bitcoin like Sean, or do you hold stocks, gold, etc.?
I first started in stocks 2018 with a tax return, and I wanted to own some Tesla because I read Ashley Vance's book, the biography of Elon Musk, and I thought that'd be a cool company to invest in. And before that, I was like 28, and before that, I really didn't have much savings. I've always been a saver, but I've never really, from when I bought my house, that kept me poor for years. And then I wanted to buy some Tesla, so I was like, okay, well, if I use my tax return, buy some Tesla stocks. And I was in stocks until 2021, actually. No gold, but my old man, he likes looking for gold. So whether or not you can say, I haven't bought any gold, but he's found some gold, so that's cool. But up until 2021, I was fully into stocks, and I was putting 40% of my gross wage into my trading portfolio, just waiting for an opportunity that would arise. And I did that, and everyone did really well in 2020, but I did that. I'd look at companies and just whatever I had there, I'd throw a couple $100 at or whatever it was. And since 2021, I have moved everything into Bitcoin. I've moved out of property, I've moved out of stocks, and I'm 100%, well, let's say 98.99% into Bitcoin at the moment. I've lowered all my costs, so majority of my wage goes to Bitcoin, and I'm dove quite deep into the rabbit hole, to be honest.
One comment I want to say on that is absolutely awesome. We're in a very similar situation with that. For everyone watching and you're thinking these guys are irresponsible, I've put in over 6,000 hours to be able to understand that. I've read every single book I can get my hands on. Beers for Bitcoin, good place to start. The Bitcoin Standard, all the books there in the background, Bitcoin Evangelism, all of Safe Dean's Broken Money, I'm getting through that. Andre Antonopoulos. It takes a while to build up that conviction. Both Rory and I have a lot of time on our side. All I'd say is if you can get to one Bitcoin, if that's within your lifestyle. Actually, I brought up something here regarding this, and then I want to get into the numbers. We'll get into that shortly. It's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And people, I don't want you to get FOMO. I don't want you to act brash and do anything stupid that's not going to benefit you or your family. So first, before even thinking about Bitcoin, just look after your psychological needs, such as food and water. Then your safety needs, security and stability. Then love and belonging, your personal relationships, friends and family, feeling accepted. What I think is if you can get these two bottom layers of the pyramid there and then start stacking, looking into Bitcoin and stuff, the love and belonging, the esteem needs, and the self-actualization as you go through that journey of learning about Bitcoin, diving in. Why does the world sound as money? It expands and it changes your time frame that you look at. I think that will then allow you to be able to fill the rest of those needs that we need as human beings. So when we're saying, 95, 98% of net worth is in there, we've got those other things sorted first. And don't jump in and make brash, irrational decisions. But if you have that sorted and it's within your capabilities to be able to stack one, it's my belief that you should do everything possible to be able to get to just one Bitcoin. If you can get past that, great and good job. If you don't get to one Bitcoin, but you get as close as you can, and that's your target, and you only get to 0.1 or 0.05 or 0.8 or whatever it is, if you can get as close as one, you will be the financial elite over a longer time frame. That's my belief there. But you don't need to jump into this FOMO when we're saying just get one, or we're 95, 98% of the wealth. I understand how expensive it is. So I just
on
wanted
that
to
note,
yeah, go ahead.
would you go down the route of what British Hodl does, where he says, just, you know, I think he mentioned go all in on and just get one if you can in one hit, or would you go down the route of DCAing up until that point? Like, how would you think about that? What would be your strategy?
So with that, if you can choose to forget about the volatility and have a longer term time frame, and you have the capability to just buy one, and say, I'll bring up the price in a second, but like it's $26,800. If you're happy to buy at $26,800 one whole Bitcoin, and be content if it was to drop to $20,000, for example. I don't think it's going to drop there, but if you can stomach that, like if you can buy it and then just relax and forget about it,
what would that be in Aussie dollars? Just
like 44,000 or something, roughly. Which is a fair amount of money, but you can go with, like, if you've got a pension, a Roth IRA, things like that, you can go down there. There's a link in the description for the Bitcoin Advisor if you need help with that, to be able to use money from your retirement to be able to go into Bitcoin. If it's within your possibility right now, I think my belief, and people need to do their own research, I'd strongly suggest starting with beers for Bitcoin, or just getting as much information before they make an irrational decision, or talk to the Bitcoin Advisor or a financial advisor that understands Bitcoin. But I think now, because once we break past 28,000 and then 32,000 and hold above 32,000, I think it's very unlikely that we're going to come back to these levels. And even if we do, they're going to be shortly lived. And if you can look, instead of just this cycle, like the next 24 months, if you can look out for, like, say, like 2028, 2032, and be content to buy one and leave it for then, or buy one and leave it forever, just go in and buy one. That's my belief there. I'd love to know, everyone in the chat, what are your thoughts in regards to DCA or just going all in if people have the capacity? I'm not talking about taking on debt. I'm not talking about not fulfilling your needs, food, shelter, not having food on the table, you know. Yeah, but what are your thoughts in regards to that?
I can only really talk about the way that I've done it, because, like, man, what is it? I think it's 42,500 or something at the moment in terms of Australian dollars, and I like to look at it as Australian dollars, because that's where I live. That's the money, that's the currency that I use every day, because I've lived here. So, man, that's a shitload of money for someone who, oh man, trying to have savings. No one has savings nowadays, majority of the time, you know. I'm a single guy by choice. I've minimized my expenses to be able to delay the gratification of delay the gratification of living a certain way, in terms of like I don't really party anymore because I'm 33. I'm too old for that now. I wake up with I haven't drunk for a few months, but I used to, you know, just randomly. And being a bartender is really weird. It's like you don't trust a skinny chef. You shouldn't trust a sober bartender, you know. Not that I was ever a big drinker, but so I don't think many people would be in the same situation that I would be, in terms of, you know, be able to put as much money towards it as I do. But it comes back to, no exposure is probably the wrong way to go about it. If you've got a spare couple $100, chuck that in. Yeah, it's not gonna be much if it goes up a lot. But if it goes up 20%, you know, there's $40 for you if you put $200 in. If it goes up, you know, if you put $1,000 in, you're up, $200 if it goes up 20%. So it all depends on what you can sort of put in there. But I just look at it like a savings tool, and I never really looked at it. Well, man, I've been hearing about Bitcoin for years, but now that when you were saying you put in 6,000 hours, all I do is just listen to hours and hours of Bitcoin talks. And I was literally speaking to a friend of mine today, and he's a South American dude. And what he was talking about, he's like, "Oh man, you send me a Bitcoin podcast yesterday as I was going to bed, like at midnight or something." And then I sent him one this morning at like 6 a.m. when I woke up. And he's like, "Man, where do you get the time to watch this?" And I was like, "Dude, I just go about my daily chores and stuff and just have my headphones in, listening to it."
Listen,
I don't know if people listen to music, and I used to listen to music in the car and stuff, but now I go for a drive and it's just all Bitcoin.
yeah.
And hear the same thing over and over and over. But it's like there's so much conviction there that I have. But at the end of the day, I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, that's going to suck a little bit. But at least I'll have a few sats.
Yeah, 100%. In my opinion, Bitcoin's never going to zero. I just want to jump into the numbers really quickly. And, Rory and I are approaching a little bit different. There's 8 billion people. They're all going to come to Bitcoin in their different way. I've interviewed so many people. You can check out the videos. Some people are never going to sell. They're going to borrow against it. It's most likely the route that my wife and I are going to go down. Some people will buy 2 Bitcoin now, one doubles, they double, they sell one, and then they've got their initial investment back, and then they just leave the other one for 5-10 years, whatever it is. There's so many different ways to be able to play it. Just create a plan and stick to your plan, because it is volatile. It's not risky in the slightest. Bitcoin's probably the safest asset to ever exist where we are now, but you need to have a plan because it is volatile. We'll just race through the numbers really quickly. 11:03 a.m. Block height 811,936. Exchange rate 26,841. Sats per dollar. It has been going up the last couple of days. That's why I get excited. 3,726. After this live stream, I will be buying some more Satoshis. Now, I will share this here. I just want to show, refresh it. It may be a little bit stale, but the low and the high last 24 hours, 26,570 was the low, 26,919. So only like less than a $400 difference, like $350 difference in the last 24 hours. It does mean it is going pretty much sideways at the moment, even 0.2. So we're sideways in the last 24 hours, ladies and gentlemen. Goes to show a lot. Bitcoin's the only one looking good. Bitcoin's the only one that matters here on this channel. Paul Tudor Jones.
There is no second best.
There is no second best, 100%. If you want to gamble or whatever, we're here talking about the world's most soundest money. We're not talking about this casino technology revolution that's going on with crypto. Make up your own minds about this. There's other channels out there. There's some good speakers, and there's people that do the research and spend the time. For me, I find it's a mind virus. I went down that track. I've removed that mind worm out of it, and it is Bitcoin only. Anyway, I want to bring up this video of Paul Tudor Jones because I couldn't find it yesterday. I think it's very important. We've got a couple of videos to get through. So listen to this and let us know if this sounds good.
And I would lump gold and Bitcoin together. I think they probably take on a larger percentage of your portfolio than historically they would.
So Paul Tudor Jones is correct. We are likely to see increasing Bitcoin allocations, and we've actually run the numbers here. So with a 1% Bitcoin allocation, investors' returns increase and their risk and total volatility actually goes down, not up. Having 1% Bitcoin in your portfolio.
That just sort of reinforces the points that I was making there. Bitcoin is volatile, but it's not risky. But then Stephen Lubka, I've interviewed him as well. Absolutely amazing guy. Has the best posture in the Bitcoin space. He's a walking maxi as well as a Bitcoin maxi. Well, listen to what he has to say here. But just a 1% reduces your portfolio risk.
Lowers your overall risk. 5% Bitcoin, you're going to see risk increase under 1% from that lower volatility scenario, but your returns go much higher. And if you're looking to optimize, have the highest risk-adjusted returns, then you're looking at a 25% Bitcoin allocation in the average portfolio. So
wait up. We need to replay that. That's insane what he just said. To have the highest risk-adjusted returns,
then you're looking at a 25% Bitcoin allocation.
Stephen Lubka is the head of Swan Private, dealing with people that are like $100 million net worth plus 25% Bitcoin allocation. So your opportunity to get one Bitcoin is running out pretty quickly. For those that can afford it, you're going to be priced out very shortly. For those that can't, obviously, you're already priced out. I'm sorry. Just do the best to get as much as possible. We'll continue playing this. We've got 20 seconds.
In the average portfolio. So agree with Paul Tudor Jones here. Investors are going to realize that they need a much larger Bitcoin allocation than they currently have.
So yeah, I like Bitcoin and I like gold right here.
I think that's absolutely fantastic. Yesterday, I ran the numbers. Paul Tudor Jones has got a net worth estimated at about 8.1 billion. He said he's got a 5% allocation there. He used to have 1 to 2%. He'd like a 5%, were his words, which would work out to about $450 million worth of Bitcoin only. So take that into account when you're doing your research there. I want to run through a couple of things, Rory, and then we will get into the Friday banter here. Let me share this. I'll zoom out a little bit. Edward Snowden. So I brought up this lady at the start, Eva, here, and privacy freedom advocate, and then we've got Edward Snowden as well. Justin Edward Snowden says Bitcoin is set out to take away power from the authoritarians. If we move on to the next tab here, Julian Assange, another freedom fighter here, an anonymous activist group is inscribing the Afghan war logs published by WikiLeaks into Bitcoin. So they're using the inscriptions there to be able to do that, to protest Julian Assange imprisonment. Absolutely amazing, the power that this technology is providing for everyone, and how many freedom fighters are getting behind it or have been behind it since the start. We are rapidly moving towards the world of CBDCs. Got a really scary article coming up very shortly in regards to what the WEF has to say, and the WEF, or the, I think it was the WEF, we'll get into it shortly, and how they're warning people about the US debt. And it's absolutely insane considering the secret meetings that happened back in 1944 at Bretton Woods, which created the Bank of International Settlements, and all these three-letter agencies came from there. They obviously created the Fed. They own the Fed. And the Fed is the one that is, maybe by design, looking to destroy the US economy. But we'll unpack that in a second. I think this is a little bit of fun to dive into, Rory. So we'll have a banner, I'll read it, and we'll get into it. Anyone that doesn't need to eat, travel, or live indoors must be elated. Paul Krugman, the war on inflation is over. We won at very little cost. CPI. It excludes food, energy, shelter, and used cars. So like the most important things for people, food and energy and shelter. Excluding that, inflation's going down. If you include that, obviously inflation's going up at a remarkable rate. What are your thoughts in regards to that one there, Rory?
Oh, first of all, who needs food, energy, and shelter? Not me.
Sure. No, not at all.
No, I think that's, they put anything in that basket to make it look nice. And you talk to anybody, they know how much things are costing at the moment. It's just insane. I don't know how most people are doing it. I'm on this men's finance advice on Facebook, and I'm seeing guys on there just asking all these questions about how to survive, how they're paying for this, how they're paying for that. Their mortgages through the roof. They're trying to, one guy was getting kicked out of his house, and he's got a wife and 3 kids, and he's looking at, how am I going to find somewhere to rent? he's even on a good wage. He was saying he's on like 6 figures. I think it was like 130 grand or something a year.
Yeah.
And I think he had like 25, or he would have had 25 grand saved up by January when he was getting kicked out. And he's like, what do I do? Do I go and buy a house? And do I go and rent somewhere? And I'm going, man, that predicament, having to, you know, have that drive to support and provide for your family, man, I don't know how people are doing it. It's crazy. Especially if you're in like a major city or something, it's just insane. I've got a lot of mates who are sort of my age and your age or our age, and man, they're renting out rooms, and they're living in 2, 3, 4 bedroom like apartments or houses with just real random. So it's like the cost of living is insane. The second thing on that, Julian Assange, I actually met Julian Assange in 2011 in London.
Wow.
He walked in with he was going to court, and it was just at the start of the controversy when he was in the embassy, and he was in court, and he just come out from one of the court dates, and nobody in the bar knew him. And I went up and I was having a chat with him, and I was talking to him and a couple of people that were with him. And back in 2011, I had a BlackBerry, some sort of smartphone BlackBerry, and the guy mentioned to me, he told me about Tor, the Onion browser.
Unreal.
And he was talking about, oh man, it was insane. I was like 21. Wish he had told me about Bitcoin. He didn't.
Dude.
But I was.
Would you have listened though? Would you have listened?
No.
Probably
But the funny thing is, one of the guys that I was talking with there, they were saying that the governments were using the smartphones to create profiles on us, to, you know, they were tracking us left, right, and center. And I used to look at it like, you know, if you're not a drug dealer or a murderer or some sort of criminal, what does it matter if the phones are tracking you? What does it matter if they're creating profiles to sell stuff to you? And then I realized, I think I got bought like an iPhone, I don't know, an iPhone 4S or something. And I started seeing ads and things, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is very strange. And then I thought back to that moment. I was like, these motherfuckers, what are they doing to me? You know? So it was very, very interesting. And then it's just progressed exponentially since then. It's gone crazy.
Yeah.
So
super cool, mate, in Assange. And in regards to that, there's a lot of controversy here in Australia. We have this shop called Target, which is like a big box like Walmart store. And there's this young teenage girl, I think she's like 14 or 15, and they started sending her ads in regards to pregnancy clothes and stuff. And judging by the habits and stuff, the phone and the algorithm knew she was pregnant before she knew she was pregnant. So that's how sophisticated that data scraping is absolutely horrific, in my opinion. Now, Michael Saylor, obviously, he is the GOAT. We've got 1 minute to get through. It is so good. Another shout out to swan.com as well. We've got a couple of links here. So I'll repost this as well. Give them a follow and watch the video I did with Stephen Lubka, because Swan really have some good content out there. But let's go for it.
The hackers, they take advantage of the fact that it's very difficult to verify and authenticate identity in cyberspace. Like, where's the universal identification database, right? There's not one. If there is one, you're going to trust Microsoft, or you're going to trust Google. Well, the Chinese don't trust Google. The Russians don't trust Microsoft. Facebook's not going to trust Google. Google's not going to trust Apple. Apple's not going to trust Facebook. You know, Alibaba's not going to trust any of them, right? And if they wanted to trust each other, then some politician would shut that down in a heartbeat, right? Like, the Chinese government doesn't want Alibaba to trust Google, do they? Individuals can't solve the problem. Corporations can't solve the problem, and nation states can't solve the problem. What we've got in Bitcoin is a network that has organically grown and spread throughout the entire world, that represents a neutral, global, immutable, unstoppable, immortal database and non-censorable, unstoppable network. The hackers, they take advantage of the fact that
the dude's a goat, hey? Like, Michael Saylor is just one of the most articulate, highest conviction goats within Bitcoin, the greatest of all time, someone that I have a huge amount of respect for. He puts his money where his mouth is. He's been so strategic with using MicroStrategy's resources and debt, issuing debt to be able to buy more of the world's hardest asset. Absolutely phenomenal. Bless you, Rory, there as well. One real quick ask for everyone. If you can hit subscribe if you haven't already, it means a lot. It helps out a lot. It is greatly appreciated. In regards to the greatest person of all time, in my opinion, actually, one question before you get your thoughts. Have you read his original book where he was talking about the mobile phone revolution?
You know the name of that book?
I'll add it in the description afterwards, or if someone in the chat. My short-term memory recall is not always the best from being a delinquent youth. So I'll put it in the description for everyone, or if someone in the chat can do a quick Google search for us and bring it up. Like the mobile phone revolution or something, we will bring it up and do that. But what are your thoughts just in regards to mobile wave? Yeah, something in regards to that, the mobile wave. But if you just type in Michael Saylor book, it'll come up. Otherwise, I'll put a link there in the description. It's so good. He was saying like this is going to be the biggest technological revolution, the greatest opportunity at that stage. And then he's so ahead of the curve with Bitcoin. Like the guy is a bloody genius, truly a genius, in my opinion. What do you think about him?
Mate, he has to be highly intelligent. I don't know if you've noticed on the interviews that he does, this guy would just talk and 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 talk. And he talks about everything. He talks about history. He knows dates. He talks about empires. He knows dates. He talks about policies. He knows dates. Everything. He's just a highly intelligent man. I did like what on that note of how he was talking about Bitcoin being the largest network. That link that I sent you with Kathy Wood and Natalie Brunell, if you want to bring that one up at some point,
I will.
Got that ready.
Loaded,
yeah. Her breakdown of what Bitcoin is was just, being the first global monetary system or rules-based monetary system is just you're like, shit, it is. And Michael Saylor talks about it being the largest computer network, actually having more computing power than the US Navy, which is just, insane to think about. And then you're like, man, this has to be something that, because we're going fully digital now. He called the mobile wave, and that just, no one saw that coming, I imagine. And as soon as 2008, when Steve Jobs released iPhone 3G, man, that just, that technology is just exploded.
Yeah, 100%. So I'd be paying attention. He's the biggest. He's not the biggest private individual to hold a stash, but definitely the largest corporation to hold a stash of Bitcoin as well. I think second after him is the US government, actually. I believe that's how that works out. Now, I want to bring this tab up. I think this is pretty important. I alluded to it at the start here, is the US debt situation. I just want to make this as easy to read for people as possible. The US debt situation looks unsustainable and corporate defaults are rising, the IMF warns. This is pretty interesting that the IMF is saying this, because they own the propaganda machines. Why are they putting this information out? Are they wanting to cause fear, panic? It's like FUD in the markets, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Like we as Bitcoiners know that the situation is not good with the nearing $34 trillion. Yesterday we're over $33.5 trillion in US debt. But most average people don't do it, and they don't advertise this worldwide or whatever. But now the IMF is starting to warn people. They have a couple of things to say about it. The US 33 trillion debt pile is reflecting unsustainable fiscal policy, the IMF said. The government has already racked up a 1.5 trillion deficit in the first 11 months of 2023. I believe in the last 3 weeks, they racked up $1 trillion, and it looks like it's going to take another 3 weeks to add another trill there as well. Under unchanged policies, debt dynamics in the US are very, very unfavourable, IMF warned. The US debt situation is looking increasingly precarious. Corporate defaults are up as interest rates stay high, according to the IMF. The US fiscal situation is the most worrying among all world countries. That is absolutely insane. They're using such powerful language. The most worrying among all of the world's countries. The IMF research director, Pierre, said in a press briefing Tuesday, that's largely due to the rapid pace of government spending, with the US already having racked up 1.5 trillion deficit first 11 months. Now, the IMF Fiscal Affairs Director, Victor, also said US deficits are elevated and look to be persistent. It gets worse, unfortunately. Total federal debt blew past 33 trillion for the first time ever this year, and it's exploding more and more. That amounts to around 121% of 2022's GDP, but that is projected to blow up in the coming years, with the added risk that the US could default on its debt in as soon as 20 years. They may never default because they've got access to the money printer, but remember, the Federal Reserve System is a private organization. I know the president and the Senate-elects who is in the Fed, but please note that the Fed is a corporate entity. The largest shareholder of the Fed, if you don't already know, is JP Morgan, and then followed obviously by the top 4 banks in the States. That future spells trouble in the backdoor, rising interest rates, with rates now at their highest level since 2001, as the Fed keeps a hawkish eye on inflation. Could raise the borrowing costs on US debt to a new record by 2025. Goldman Sachs strategist said, everyone's jumping in here. It's pretty full on. Making debt more expensive isn't... Making debt more expensive is an intended consequence of tightening monetary policy to contain inflation. The risk, however, is that borrowers might already be in precarious positions financially, and the higher interest rates could amplify these fragilities, leading to a surge of defaults, the IMF warned in a blog. Corporate debt defaults have already been rising globally, notching their highest monthly increase in August, according to S&P data globally. This is since 2000, and this goes back to 2008, but since 2009, we haven't been this high, and we are approaching 2009 levels there, which is pretty intense. So meanwhile, defaults on US high-yield bonds are expected to notch 4.5 to 5% this year, according to an estimate from Fitch Ratings, more than 6 times the 0.07 default rate recorded among all high-yield bond issuers in 2021. It's pretty full on for that. I just want to switch gears totally, and I'm only going to play about 20 seconds of this. Credit to Natalie Brunel, absolutely amazing journalist, and I just want to share. Natalie asked just such a great question of Kathy Wood. So this is Kathy Wood's response here to it.
Well, I first describe what it is, and I ask them to listen very carefully to each of the words that I'm saying. It is the first global, private, meaning no government intervention, rules-based, if I didn't say digital, I should say it now, digital monetary system that the world has ever known. It is a very big idea.
It is a very big idea, ladies and gentlemen. I will share this video on Twitter. You need to be following Natalie Brunel if you haven't already. Yes, I have interviewed Natalie Brunel as well, one of the greatest minds and journalists within Bitcoin. So check that video out as well. Why did you send that clip and that timestamp through to me, Rory?
Because, you know, the reason I sent that is some people, you know, like I'm not great at explaining the technical reasons why people should buy Bitcoin or, you know, invest in Bitcoin or hold a little bit of Bitcoin. I'm not the best at it. I'm not the most well articulated. I swear quite a bit, being an Aussie. But that definition, if that doesn't give you an idea on why you should hold Bitcoin, I don't know what will. It being the first of its kind, it's just like that. Man, you can't be any more bullish on that. That can't make you. If that doesn't make you bullish on it, nothing will. You know, the way that she breaks that down, you're like, holy shit, this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. Yeah, and it's no one can control it. I was talking to my friend, and he was telling me about a hack that happened, and I said, mate, if you leave your wallet on the seat of your car and someone breaks your window and they take the cash out of your wallet, I go, that's because you stored it improperly. Same thing with Bitcoin. And
Yeah.
there was a definition of, you know, if you hold your seed phrase in your head, remember 12 words or 24 words in order, and someone points a gun at your head and says, give me the cash in your wallet, and you say no, then they shoot you, then they take the cash. Do that with Bitcoin. Give me your seed phrase. No, they shoot you, they can't get it. You know, and he's like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, it makes heaps of sense.
Yeah.
It's like, it's digital cash. So if you don't hold it correctly, you're going to lose your cash, you're going to lose your Bitcoin. But that being the first of its kind, global, private, digital, rules-based monetary system is just, it's insane. No one, and this is why I've gone so far down the rabbit hole. 2020 showed me that they can control us really, really easily. And I like freedom of choice. That's why I live in a democracy. I don't live in a dictatorship. I live in a perceived democracy.
Yeah.
You know, we don't get a choice to vote. It's mandatory to vote, which I feel contradicts democracy. You know, having a choice, just in general. So, yeah, 2020 showed me a lot and just opened my eyes up. And I was like, well, hang on a second, I gotta opt out of this system. And seems to be working for El Salvador. They opted out of the system. The IMF wasn't too happy about it, you know, when they announced what they were going to be doing. But it seems to be working. You know, you listen to Max Kaiser, and he's like, man, it's such a safe country now. It never used to be, but it is a really safe country now. And it just comes back to that old adage, Bitcoin fixes this. You know, so it's like, whatever the problem is in the world, Bitcoin fixes this. Governments can't print more of it. I can't print more of it. I had the last piece of the puzzle just arrive to me, which is going to be my Raspberry Pi that I'm going to be setting up soon. So I'll be part of the consensus network and making sure I'll keep people honest with the Bitcoin network. But yeah, it's just, I like the idea that it's power to the people. You know, you see those old memes where one guy's whipping 200 people, and then one guy stands up, and then everybody else stands up, and then he can't get whipped anymore, or he can't whip those 200 people. If we all stand up and say enough's enough, what are they going to do? They're going to have to listen, because there's more of us than there is of them. And yeah, if we opt out, I haven't a weird thought about that though. The way that we stack sats through exchanges, if you're selling your Bitcoin and I'm buying it from you,
Yep.
the money is just my Aussie dollars is going to you. So that's a circular system. that's my biggest question. So I'm taking money out of Australian dollars and giving it, but I'm thinking I'm taking it out, putting it into Bitcoin, but I'm actually giving it to you, and then you're using your Aussie dollars. The thing that I struggle with is that doesn't take the money out of the system. But when a miner sells their Bitcoin and then I purchase it from the miner, they're paying for their costs. Do you see what I'm saying there? How it's still like in the circular economy. That's what I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying to say?
I sort of understand. We can unpack that shortly. I guess with that, it depends. Like if you're using your Aussie dollars on an Australian exchange and that money stays in Australia, then sort of in a way it stays within the system and it'll just go from one Australian bank to another Australian bank. But say, for example, and I'm not suggesting anyone uses Binance ever, but say you were to use your Aussie dollars to buy on Binance, they're going to convert those Australian fiat dollars probably into US dollars and store them offshore there. And that's how the money gets taken out of the Australian system. And Bitcoin, that's my belief and a basic understanding of it, is that's how it's, that's why they feel threatened, is because people like Binance are offshore and they're not controlled or controllable with it. As same deal, which is happening with FTX, Alameda Research and stuff. They were all offshore and taking that money out of the US economy, which stops them being able to fractionally reserve, lend if they don't have enough cash. Like the fractional reserve system's so messed up, and they need to have 4% or whatever reserves at the moment. But if we are sending cash overseas, and that reduces the amount that they can lend out, and eventually it's going to make their Ponzi system fall down, which makes me laugh in regards to, the mainstream media very often label Bitcoin as the Ponzi scheme, a Ponzi system, but it's actually the fiat system that is. Yesterday, I just want to bring everyone's attention back to this. One thing you said, Rory, was Bitcoin is freedom and privacy. We still need a few more layers of privacy, which are being built and developed at the moment within Bitcoin, because I talked about this yesterday. So watch that video, and I reposted this from Sam Callahan talking about Project Atlas as well, about surveilling the international flows of Bitcoin and all crypto assets. So people are very good, and they will work one step ahead. You've got people like Julian Assange, Edward Snowden talking about it, but they'll always unidentified coders, hackers, or whatever working on the Bitcoin system that will allow more privacy onto the Bitcoin base chain. But at the moment, it's so public, it's very easy for them to be able to use on-chain analytics to be able to track and trace their couple of things for everyone. They may be curious. Obviously, October is meant to be Uptober. It's down. At the moment, we're not off to the best start there. I think a lot comes back to the GBTC, which is happening tomorrow. I think people are ultimately a little bit worried about what happens tomorrow, and that's why those prices comes down. If it goes in the favor and we gap up 50%, that's pretty exciting stuff. But just be aware that it's going to be a volatile month. We've been saying that since the start of the month. We are going to finish the month higher, in my opinion. That move looks like it's probably going to come towards the end of the month, and it may not come. And if it doesn't, even better, you can stack sats. But Bitcoin merely maintained its position at 27,700. Obviously, it's down from that now. Bitcoin has outperformed two of the most secure assets in traditional finance. So Bitcoin is not necessarily like 27,600. The price right now is 26,800. So it's down a little bit more than that regardless of how you frame this historic achievement, Bitcoin enthusiasts may not be entirely satisfied with its 520 bill market cap. But pay attention to this. Even though it surpasses the market caps of global payment processor Visa, $493 billion, and ExxonMobil, $428 billion. This bullish expectation is partly based on Bitcoin's previous all-time high market cap of 1.3 trillion in November. It's only a matter of time before we get back to that 12 to 18 months. I think we're in for one hell of a party with Bitcoin. So just when in doubt, ladies and gentlemen, the PSA is just relax. In regards to this, I'll bring up the block clock first, and this will make a little bit more sense. I'll share this. So the next halving estimated on time chain calendar, 25th of April. It used to be the 26th. It changed in the last week. Now, if we look on a couple of different websites here, this is coinwars.com. When is the next Bitcoin halving date? It's scheduled to take place at block height 840,000, predicted to occur April 24. So time chain said April 25. This is at 2:56 p.m. UTC. On the Bitcoin halving date, the block reward is scheduled to drop from 5.25 Bitcoin to 3.25. If we go on to the next clock here, 185 days, 17 hours, 36 minutes, April 15, which is 10 to 11 days before everyone else. So these are really moving wildly here. IG.com, they don't give a date here, but expected April 24. So everyone's agreeing on April. Swan's got a really good couple of things here. They just talk about how the halvings, 2012 from 50 to 25, 2016 from 25 to 12.5, 2020 12.5 to 6.25. I think the reason why the next halving that's coming up is so important is because it'll take Bitcoin's inflation lower than what gold's is for the first time in history. Obviously, gold's been a traditional store of value there. Here they're talking about April 26, 2024 at 11:59 a.m. there. So obviously they are changing quite dramatically. Chico Crypto, you sent me a clip there. He did a good job of explaining why they differ. But I'll hand this one over to you, Rory, and let you unpack all that for the audience.
No pressure. Yeah, no, it's strange to see the different, the wide variety of time frames. I even saw one that was going to say it was going to happen in March, and Chico Crypto did a good video where he basically broke it down. That'd be something I'd like to see going forwards. But just on the note of the block height, in the comments, whenever you're watching this, put down what the block height is while you're watching it, so that way we can work out what where everybody is and how far along this is and how well this ages is the other thing. But yeah, the block height, the halving time, man, it's going to be interesting to see what happens around that time. They talk about it, I think 18 months after the halving is when the next all-time high is. So it'd be interesting to take note of where everybody's price predictions are. And I'll never put a price prediction out because it's well above my pay grade. I'm just a little humble pleb going against the system as per usual since a teenager, I assume or imagine, but that's what I've always done. So it's, I'm just excited to see what comes from this bear market. And, I was a little bit involved in the bull market in 2020 and 2021, first in stocks in 2020 and crypto. I wish I could say Bitcoin, but it wasn't. And I know not so much the FOMO, but the roller coaster of emotions that you can have when everything's pumping. And I'm going to do my best to recognize when that happens next and make smarter decisions with things that moving in the future, because it was the wild west of the DeFi. I would not recommend anyone to play around with, because it can be quite profitable, but for most it's quite unprofitable. And I watched a clip the other day, and someone was talking about, you can play around all you want in the alt markets to try and gain more Bitcoin. Dangerous, because the 99 times out of 100 it's not going to work, but that one time out of 100 you might get early in Pepe coin, which don't forget to sell and then put it into Bitcoin, because that's what's going to come out on top. It used to be none of these exchange coins are going to last, I assume. There might be a market for it, as there's a market for everything. But yeah, it's stacking wheat, gold, and Bitcoin. wheat for the bread, gold because it looks nice, and Bitcoin because it's the hardest money ever created.
To ever exist.
Yeah, it's good to be a part of the space, that's for sure.
100%. I just want to answer this question by a new creature came up. When do you both reckon it would be unattainable for the regular person to be able to get to one Bitcoin? It's already unattainable for the regular person who doesn't understand it to be able to get to one. If you are fairly comfortable, you've taken care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it's possible, but I think you've got probably till the end of the year, maybe up to the halving, to be able to get there. You may need to get creative and use your super or your pension or your IRA to be able to get some. I don't recommend anyone taking out leverage or debt. Quite a lot of people in the comment sections of my videos recently are saying they got to 0.5 Bitcoin and then they got a Helic loan, which is something in regards to drawing against their house or something. I don't think you need to put yourself in that situation. Just do everything you can to be able to get as much as you can, but without being irresponsible, without go hard enough to be able to get as much as you can, but where you still sleep peacefully most of the time. Maybe have a little bit of a stretch. You don't always need to sleep good. It's good to be outside of your comfort zone. I guess the reason why saying get to one is so important is because it does create a little bit of urgency. Once this opportunity's gone after the halving, it's probably impossible for the majority of people, even people, multi-millionaires, to be able to get one. It depends where they've got their money stored as well. I understand it's unachievable for most people already. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse over time. So just take that into account there. If you can smash the like button as well, that'd be greatly appreciated. What are your thoughts, Rory, in getting to one? And the achievableness of it.
Mate, it's the achievableness on getting to one. I find it hard to see the average person getting to one Bitcoin at Australian dollars, $42,000, $43,000, US dollars, 26,000. I find that very unrealistic for majority of people, just because of how I've sort of grown up. Not being a tradesman, not being a high net worth, not having much skills in terms of job prospects and things. I've upskilled a little bit and are currently still doing it, but it would be very, very hard for the average person to do. so it's, personally, I hope, everyone says, you were saying it's not going to go down to 20,000. Once it hits 28,000, 32,000, it's going to be hard because of the resistance there. It's going to be hard for it to drop even further. Mate, I would love for it to drop to 10,000, 3,000
Me
like
too.
it did in, I think, 2020. I would,
Yeah, March 2020, 3,300.
which is like what, 5,000, maybe a little bit closer to 6,000 Australian dollars.
Yeah.
But in saying that, some people don't have $6,000 in their bank, and if they do, they're sitting there as it might come time when they're like, "Fuck, I need new tires on my car," or I broke my leg and I can't work, so I need to pay rent, or whatever it is. So I find it very disappointing. No, not disappointing. I find it sad to think about that people won't be able to get to that one Bitcoin. And I remember I did a quick calculation of the millionaires versus the Bitcoins available, and I just did straight up 21 million, and I think it worked out. Was it 50? I think 55 million millionaires or something, and it comes to like less than 0.5, less than half a Bitcoin each if there was 21 million available, which there isn't. And then not even looking at the price of it per coin versus the market cap and things. But if everyone just had one, it's not possible. So to get there would be awesome for people to do. But I hope it drops so that way people can put more money into it. But at the end of the day, what British Hodl talks about, how he's like, as soon as the institutional money comes in, it's going to price out low net worth. It's going to price out millionaires, because millionaires are, they're millionaires because they have $1 million in their home. You can't just sell your house. You can't sell a portion of your house to buy it. Not that people would take that risk, because you need somewhere to live as well. So it's, I don't know, man. If you can get there, get there. If you can't, just put a little bit in there and use it as a savings, whatever you don't need to touch for the next five years sort of setup. And if you can keep it longer, keep it longer.
Yep. Yeah, that's Gail. I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. That's why it's important to pass the message. Bitcoin is actually a new savings account over to get to one full one. I totally agree. Bitcoin's just a new savings account. They can't agree. I want to push back on a couple of things there. I think where we are in the cycle now, I am going to keep pushing people to one, and people may not be able to achieve it conventionally, or they may not be able to achieve it at all. But if it creates a little bit of urgency to be able to get as much as you can while fulfilling that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think that's a good thing. Pushing back on you a little bit, Rory, you are in Australia. We have super. You working, since you're young. Super's been here the whole time. You probably have, I don't know, maybe $40,000 or more within your super fund, so you can go into a self-managed super. Say you didn't even have that. Say you only had $20,000 or $22,000, for example, and maybe not even directed at yourself. Lower. With my super as well, like I had $7,500 in there in 2019. Turned into a self-managed super fund, obviously. Got in at the right price, like with that as well, with my retirement account, put $7,500 is a whole lot of jack shit. Now, I didn't go just into Bitcoin. I got some crap out there, some shit coins, but turned that into an extremely large amount of money in a short time, and into more Bitcoin through that, actively participating in the market. But what I'm getting at is, and I don't recommend buying shitcoins with it, I was actively trading the markets at that time. I had that mind virus in my head. People do whatever. I've been there. It's just a waste of time, and it really misleads you, and you need to be focused full time. But most people within Australia are going to have whatever amount of money within their pension or the super or whatever. The Australian Prime Minister the other day, when he was elected, he said, we have no intention to touch the super, and now that propaganda machine is coming out. And he's saying, yes, we don't have the intention to do it, but now we're in talks and we're just seeing what's out there. If they don't have any intention, why would they even be undertaking these conversations. They do want to take your superannuation, your pension, your fiat system. It's happening all around the world. They see this pot of money there. They want to bring in CBDCs. They just want to pay people regularly from there, but take away everyone's pension. Now the money's going to be worth less and less. So if you do have that opportunity, reach out to the Bitcoin advisor. I've interviewed 3 people or 2 people from the Bitcoin advisor. You can have a look at those videos, Peter Dunworth. And when I talk to Andy, we talk about self-managed super. It's a little bit different in different places in the world, but people do have retirement accounts, and there are other creative ways to be able to get there. So talk to someone that may be able to guide and tell you something that you don't know, because we don't know what we don't know. And we're thinking about, oh, yes, like I earn $1,000 a week or whatever. I'm never going to be able to get to 1 Bitcoin. But say you've been working for 20 years, you've probably got a little bit of money in your pension or your super here in Australia that you can utilize to be able to stack that. Not financial advice, but it's worth looking into, and find creative ways where it is just possible. But if you have the goal of one, and say someone passes away and then you get an inheritance, for example, instead of spending that money frivolously, because you've got the goal of 1 Bitcoin and that comes into your life, then you know where to put it. You're not going to make stupid decisions and look back in a year and be like, should have done Bitcoin. That's my thoughts in there. 7,500 is exactly what I received from Graham's inheritance. I put it all into Bitcoin, just lucky it was only $150. I wonder if you're buying Bitcoin at 150. Let's bloody go. So these things do happen, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got any questions, chuck them in there really quickly. What are your final thoughts, Rory? We've got 4 minutes here for today's Friday Bitcoin banter.
Mate, on that note of super, in Australia, it's mandatory to have a super account. I think your employer puts 9% of your wage into your super, and you can add in and top it up, and then claim that as a tax write-off at the end of the year. I think in America, in the 401, you have to opt into it, same as Canada, and I believe it's the same in New Zealand as well. The thing is, with super, they're investing on your behalf in the stock market. Now, nobody knows which way the stock market's going to go, which stocks are going to perform, except Nancy Pelosi and her husband.
And Elizabeth Warren.
Yeah, there's a few people that know, but that's just good guessing. But look, on a serious note, nobody knows what it's going to do. So what they're actually doing is betting and gambling and guessing with your money. Now, I don't like that idea, because I want to gamble, guess, and put my money where I believe it might work better. So, on the note of having super, mate, I have got like $4,000 in super, mainly because I took out what I could back in 2020. But I traveled all through my 20s. I was in Australia for like 6 months at a time, save up money, and then bugger off overseas again. Yep. So I have no super. So I have no reliance on that at all. So I have to strive to set myself up, making the right decisions and actually putting my money in certain things that is going to set myself up for the future, because I don't plan on relying on the super. But I'm actually going into a new job which starts in a week, that will be quite a high earning position, and I'm going to start maxing out my super contributions to offset my tax, and it will be through the Bitcoin advisor self-managed super fund to invest in Bitcoin, because that gives me control over my super. It gives me choice of where my money goes, and I don't have to rely on someone else guessing and gambling and hoping with my money, because at the end of the day, it's your money, you worked for it. If it's mandatory, I understand why super's there. I got to make a note of that too while I think about it. The reason we have super in place and it's mandatory in Australia, I feel, is because people don't know how to save or set themselves up for the future, and the government doesn't want them to rely solely. They don't want people to rely solely on the government when they retire, so they want to have something set up in place. Plus, it also boosts the ASX and keeps our stock exchange, our Australian stock market alive and well, and contributes to the global stock exchanges as well. So I think that's part of it too. But yeah, that's my final thought on the super. If you can control your money, do the best you can to control it. And if you got that goal of 1 Bitcoin, good luck to you.
Yeah, definitely what I'd say. It's your money, so it should be your choice. What I want to push back on there is, well, as they did push us into the super so that we had a pile of money there for retirement, but now they are slowly putting that propaganda out that lies, the misinformation, to be able to take that, spend that super money on defence, and then just pay people a pension. Obviously, the 2030 agenda, own nothing, can be happy and live off the government, is happening worldwide. It's not a conspiracy. It's not a tinfoil hat. This is truly their intention, and the Australian Prime Minister is now in talks to be able to claim back their super. So be aware of that. You are running out of time if you want to do it. And if you want to leave a bit in super, you can have a self-managed super fund, and then you can have whatever. So say for yourself, Rory, you work 6 months, you build up your normal super because it comes with all the insurance. All you need is $5,000 minimum. And maybe it's changed a little bit, but then they'll pay all your life insurance, death insurance, accident insurance, things like that. And then you can switch, and then you can start a self-managed super fund. Keep that existing super fund with the $5,000 or the minimum requirements for all your insurances. And then you can go down the track of self-managed super funds and get out there. But once you do that, just make sure your Bitcoin is in cold storage as well. Obviously, report it legally. The documents, when you set up a self-managed super fund, when we got the mortgages, like 3 signatures, the signatures for setting up a self-managed super fund were over 30. Like, it's insane. There's a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of details. It's highly regulated. I just spent yesterday afternoon doing my self-managed super, all the information they want to be able to stay compliant. So you said you're going to go through the Bitcoin Advisor. I've had them on so many times. A link in the description. They will look after you. It's a free chat if you need help. And then in regards to a new creature, how to move to self-managed super, watch that video I did with Andy from the Bitcoin Advisor. There's a video. I'll just bring up the dashboard really quickly for everyone, my YouTube channel, and show you which one it is here. We'll share this tab instead, and we'll bring this one up. So they stole your pension. This one here with Jerome Powell on the front and prison clothes. This is the video to watch. That's with Andy from the Bitcoin Advisor. Maybe start with the $7 billion Bitcoin. This is the founder of the Bitcoin Advisor. Andy's the founder as well. Peter set it up. Andy's joined the team there. Andy's the self-managed super fund expert. Peter's a goat. I've actually got a call with him in 15 minutes' time. So I look forward to that. A real gentleman. I'd watch that video as well. Peter McCormack did a fantastic interview with Peter McCormack there. Great chat, guys. There was one question here. Bitcoin ETF seems good for those who need a more simple estate planning strategy. 100% for the everyday person, it'll be good, and it will allow super funds and stuff easily to be able to then buy Bitcoin. A lot of people are going to have Bitcoin in their portfolios without even knowing. And that video that Stephen Ludke brought up earlier, a 1 to 2% can reduce like nearly all the risk for people. Self-managed super funds in general are going to see that is the right thing to do, because they're already getting questioned. When I was still in super early 2019, I kept asking them, like, I want to invest in Bitcoin. No, you can't do that. I'm like, tell me how to use my super to invest in Bitcoin. It's a scam, blah, blah. Said, I'm not interested in your opinion on it. I just want to know how I can invest in Bitcoin through this. No, you can't do that. I'm like, all right, please give me all the information, all the documents so that I can get out of your account and go into it. Final questions I'll go through. Thanks, Sean. I've watched both. We'll re-watch there as well. say, just reach out to Peter, reach out to the team, check him out. But the Peter McCormack video with Peter Dunworth is absolutely insane. And then Peter Dunworth's got one fascinating brother, like absolutely fascinating. We have lost. I want to bring up one more video here that I would recommend everyone. Daz B, he's the author of Beers for Bitcoin, which I like bring up absolutely non-stop. There, it's funny, you got 2 copies in front of you. I got 2 copies in front of me, 3 in the background, pack 6 for the States and America. If anyone's in Virginia next week, reach out to me. Orange Pill app is probably the best place to reach out to me, or Twitter at Sean Clark 911. You'll probably need a tweet if I'm not following you. Just tweet at me and I can send you a DM. But this $267 million exit, this guy, Michael Dunworth, is sending Bitcoin like 120 years into the future. So there's a reward there for miners when there's no more Bitcoin reward. Ladies and gentlemen, you're absolutely all incredible. We'll make sure there's he's Australian too, Bitcoin advisor for that. He's Australian too. They do work all around the world. So wherever you are in the world, they can put you in touch with the right people. I know Luke Broyles and stuff is working alongside them there as well. So wherever you are, they can surely help. Orange Pill app, that's the Bitcoin social layer. Something really exciting with the OPA coming up in regards to this short video we'll be filming in the States next week, and that'll be coming out in about 3 weeks' time. Enjoy the interviews that are coming up, and I will link that video at the end with British Hodl for everyone to watch and go through the back catalogue. Subscribe if we vibe. Such a fun Friday banter, brother. Thanks so much, Rory, and everyone in the chat. You're legends. Peace.
Cheers.